Hello and welcome back to Lost in Sci-Fi and Fantasy, where this week we are talking Fallout the TV series. Now, I've been on a little bit of a break. It's been a nice little relaxing period of time for me to kind of help refocus and collect my thoughts and everything. It's been a good time. Did I watch, space out the TV series amongst the entire thing? I did not. No, I watched it in like the last 2 days, so... Yeah, that it's just how it is sometimes, I guess. But what did I think of it overall? I found it pretty good. I'm saying this now because I do also want to go ahead and give some content warnings, as this show is quite graphic and gory. So if you do not like that, you might want to skip the series in general. If you do not like descriptions of gore, you might want to skip this episode of the podcast, because sadly you can't really talk about the series without going into at least a little bit of detail for the gore and whatnot. So there's that. But other than that, yes, that's where we're going to kind of leave it for the series. But how was my break? What did I do? I went into depth on it on the most recent episode of The Challenge over on RPG Hangout, but I can give a quick recap. I didn't get to do everything I wanted to, but it was overall fine. I got to, relax a bit, play a variety of games and whatnot. I wanted to do a live stream, but I kind of overdid it on downloads and testing things and whatnot, so I ended up over limit on the internet. Whoops. So, yeah. So I couldn't do the live stream I wanted to, though I did do a big personal achievement, and I got the Star Wars Battlefront 2 Platinum. I am very happy with that. I wanted to live stream the moment and whatnot, but I couldn't, because I couldn't pinpoint about how long it would take to do. But with that said, the break is now over. It kind of flew by in the blink of an eye, but I am feeling nice and refreshed and recharged. I've got a bit of an idea of how I might do some longer series, like, say, Star Trek. But with that said, let's go ahead and start to dive into the Fallout TV series with a little bit of background. So personally, my personal background is that I've always had a bit of an interest in the series. It started off with just hearing stories from other people, like when I was in middle school, talking about Fallout 3 in New Vegas. And they were talking about how gory and whatnot it was, and how terrifying of a game it was. I believed them, because I'd never heard of the series, and I'd never really played it. That kind of sparked a bit of an interest, to where I ended up watching some videos, mostly from Many a True Nerd, who does a lot of Fallout content. And overall, it was very fun, and it got me interested in the series, and so I sought out the games. And I always have the issue of I kind of really want to play the first game first, so I sought out Fallout 1. And in fact, on Steam, I actually have all of the Fallout games, I believe. I do. I have Fallout 2, Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, New Vegas, and Tactics. The only one that I don't have, and it's because it's kind of really difficult to get, because I think it only came out on the original Xbox, maybe, is Fallout Brotherhood. But supposedly Fallout Brotherhood's kind of like Fallout Tactics, and it's not really canon at all, because the things. But, yeah. But I have dipped into every Fallout game. In fact, at one point on my YouTube channel, had started to do a Fallout series, but then stopped. Because I believe I was doing Fallout 4 and Far Cry 4 at the same time. It was a bit silly. But, yeah. So I've dipped into every Fallout game except for Fallout Tactics. And overall, I enjoy the series, though I've never completed one of the games. But that is one thing I will definitely give Fallout, the TV series, is that its job is kind of to reinvigorate and keep interest in the Fallout games burning strongly. Now, of course, everyone is waiting for Fallout 5, and you would think that Bethesda would be smart and have something to release with the Fallout TV series. The best they gave us was a PS5 or next-gen update for Fallout 4. And that's it, which gave, like, minimal half-assed content, and then I think a slight graphical update, I think. But, yeah, business decisions aside, overall, it did its job. It made me want to play some more Fallout games again, especially the first game, because the TV series actually takes place primarily around the same area as the first Fallout game, that is, in the California area. Now, we don't get to see a whole lot of locations that appear in the original game. In fact, I think we only really get to see maybe one or two. It still is quite an interesting thing to see, especially since it is technically the first Bethesda-led thing that's gone to California specifically, because the only other Bethesda thing that took place anywhere near the West Coast was New Vegas. So this series, I believe, is the most recent bit of media, I think, in the timeline of Fallout. I think. I can't be 100% sure, but I think it is. I remember seeing someone post like a timeline, and I think that it said that this is kind of the most recent thing. It takes place over the course of 8 episodes, and we follow primarily 3 characters, though technically we follow 4. That is Lucy, our Vault Dweller, the Ghoul, and Maximus, who is part of the Brotherhood of Steel. The 4th character that we kind of follow is Lucy's brother, whose name is slipping from my mind because I have trouble actually remembering all the things. But anyway, so the episodes are a mixture of jumping between the characters as well as some flashbacks, primarily pertaining to the character of the Ghoul. Now, this series is actually created, or at least showrun by the same person who did Westworld, that being Jonathan Nolan. Now, Westworld, he did in conjunction, I believe, with his wife, but this, I think he's doing on his own, in conjunction mostly with Bethesda and whatnot. But it is a really interesting show, and you can definitely feel the Westworldy vibes of the show as it goes on. But yeah, the show opens with the Ghoul, who at this time is not the Ghoul. He is a man named Cooper. I believe Cooper Howard is his name. And he is doing a little rodeo show thing, and he is a seemingly washed up actor, forced to do kids' birthdays and whatnot. He takes his daughter around to do the cowboy thing. As the party's wrapping up and he got his payment, he's just trying to get his daughter a bit of cake because she wants some cake. She's curious because during the party there's a bit of a row slightly brought up because they asked Howard or Cooper to do the thumb thing, and we're not really explained what the thumb thing is until he explains it to his daughter, that the idea is that in the event of a nuclear bomb, you hold your thumb up, and if the mushroom cloud is bigger than your thumb, run, but if it's smaller than your thumb, you're okay, is the idea. It's, I believe, a false thing, and that's not really what's actually attributed to the Vault Boy thing, but that was at least what he was doing, I guess. But at that moment, the bombs indeed drop. And so there's this massive panic as he's trying to get his daughter and run. And they take a horse and they book it for the hills. And that's where that cuts. And then we go to Lucy, who is on her wedding day. She is to be married because she is part of Vault 33. And in order to improve diversity, they must, cross-populate with their neighbors in Vault 32. So there's Vault 33 and Vault 32, but it turns out, and I don't think we learned this until the second episode, there's also Vault 31 just there. So it's like a triangle of vaults that all work together and exchange people and resources to try to keep each other going. And they're waiting for Reclamation Day. So while it is within the setting of like a future version of Fallout 1's area, a lot of the ideas within the vaults are kind of more modern-y Fallout, at least it feels, because you have the idea of Reclamation Day, which comes from like Fallout 76. I don't know if many other vaults in the games have had the idea of Reclamation Day. I don't know if any other vaults have had the idea of Reclamation Day put into them. I don't have that much research under my belt. But the whole idea in general is that most of the vaults were experiments anyway. So they have the idea of Reclamation Day. They have like a very weirdly chipper disposition. And it kind of feels like it's also a bit of a mix of that with Fallout 3, if that kind of makes sense, where there's this underlying mystery and whatnot going on, but we'll get there. But yes, so she is to be married to someone from Vault 32, and they have this thing where everyone comes for a wedding, and she's shown who her partner's going to be. But it's a lovely ceremony, and afterwards, she takes her new husband back to where they're going to be living. They have sex, and then it turns out that no, the people that were from Vault 32 weren't actually the people from Vault 32. They were raiders. They have to, fend off this raider attack, and surprisingly, they do pretty well. And a lot of the people who you think are just dead aren't. But it is quite a gory scene, as you're seeing people getting shot and cut down, and even like her husband, she gets stabbed by him, but she's able to break a glass and cut his face up. But he even survives that. But they're able to put down the thing, but her dad is taken by the raiders, the remaining raiders, and taken away. And everyone else, they start rebuilding and just straight up cleaning up Vault 33. Then Lucy decides that she needs to go after her father and enlists the help of her brother and the guy who was the gatekeeper, or I guess technically at this point still is, but he gets demoted because he helps Lucy escape. She takes a dart gun that she was using during the raider attack and takes that with her. And she sets out into the wilderness to find her father. Then we meet our last character, that of Maximus, who has ambitions within the Brotherhood of Steel. When we meet him, he is an aspirant. He aspires to be a knight, but at this point is just an aspirant, and he's getting the ever-loving shit beat out of him by the other aspirants. And a Brotherhood airship arrives and brings some knights for some reason, and it is kind of explained that they're there to get new squires. Now, Maximus's friend is chosen to ascend to the role of squire, and Maximus is a bit jealous of that. It is assumed that Maximus, in a bid of jealousy, sabotaged his friend in order to potentially usurp them and gain the position of squire, which he is granted. He's granted the position of squire, replaces his friend, and goes. And the sabotage was a razor in their boot. But he is made squire for Knight Titus, and is branded and sent off to locate a target. The target is a scientist from the Enclave, and a dog. And there's some sort of relic that he is carrying that must be retrieved. That is all we're told in the first episode. The first episode, by the way, the title is The End. The second episode's title is The Target. We begin the episode following said doctor. According to this, his name is Wiltzig. Again, a lot of the side characters' names I just don't remember. Raised a dog, and then decided to betray the Enclave. Is kind of what I got from his story. Basically, what it seemed like was that they were probably going to put that dog down because it wasn't performing enough, I guess. So he saves the dog and keeps it hidden away while he works on his side project. And he trains the dog, raises the dog, and then he injects himself with the project, presumably wanting to leave the Enclave. But his plans are kind of forced up a bit in the timeline as someone discovers his secret dog and is about to rat on them, and kind of successfully does, so they have to flee the Enclave, and that's why he's on the run currently. Lucy actually ends up encountering him while trying to take a nap. Now, he actually knows who she is, we find out by the end of the episode. They do re-encounter each other later on in the episode, and her thing is mostly that she's just kind of wandering through the wasteland. She encounters not really anything while wandering, except for eventually, I think after she has her encounter with the doctor, she comes across a guy who's like, "Oh yeah, just go over that hill to Philly, and you'll get what you need, or you'll be able to get more information there." Meanwhile, though, we do encounter... Oh, I forgot the ghouls part in episode 1. The ghouls part is basically he gets dug up. So he's been held by someone who's been using him for parts, ? And this crew digs him up because they need his help trying to get this target, who's the doctor. And he kills everyone and then just leaves. But of course, he was also in the introduction of the episode and the series overall. So there's that. But yeah, that's kind of all he does in the episode, I believe, is he just does that and then he leaves to take on the bounty. In the second episode, though, we don't see him until later on, because a lot of this episode is actually kind of more focused on Maximus, as his knight, Titus, gets bored and asks to be set down so that he can go kill something. And, Maximus is very disapproving of Titus's methodologies. And, well, Titus actually does end up biting off more than he can chew, though does surprisingly lead them in the direction. There's a whole lot of coincidence in this show of, like, how they're being able to track things, or just how they stumble upon where people were, because they end up at a bear cave where the doctor just so happened to have sat down for like a minute not too long ago. They go in, they encounter a irradiated bear. Titus gets his shit absolutely rocked, ends up bleeding out because of the bear attack, and he also tripped and kind of knocked himself silly. And Maximus, instead of giving him a stim pack to heal him, decided to just let him die, take his armor, and from that point on decides to pose as Titus in order to... Basically, his idea is pose as Titus, get the target, return it to the Brotherhood, and become an official knight, even though he killed and stole his previous knight's armor, was his idea. But yeah, so he starts journeying his way to track the doctor. As Lucy reaches Philly, she re-encounters the doctor, and he does keep warning her that she should just go home. She should go home, Don't worry about it. Just go home. But she doesn't listen. And this is where kind of all the characters converge for the first time. Where the ghoul attacks the doctor because he's trying to get the doctor. Lucy is trying to protect the doctor. And Maximus, pretending to be Titus, comes in, starts fighting the ghoul to also get the doctor. And he enlists Lucy's help to get the doctor to safety. He's given a new foot and whatnot, and they're able to escape out the back while the fight's going on. They come to a downed satellite, and the doctor stops them. He tells Lucy that he has taken a cyanide capsule developed by Vault-Tec called Plan D. And Plan D, according to him, is the most humane thing that they made. It's cyanide and it tastes like bananas. So, it was the nicest thing that they made. But he tells her that he figured he wasn't going to survive the journey anyway, because he had his leg shot off and replaced with a robotic one that kind of, in order to install it, it kind of munches up part of your leg to, I guess, create a stable nubbin. But it doesn't, like, cauterize it or anything, so you're still kind of bleeding through it. And he's like, I'm not going to make it. So I want you to still take me to the person who took your dad, and we'll figure it out from there. And he's like, I want you to cut off my head. You just need to take my head. And he passes away after revealing that he knew her name. Then she sets to business and does the deed. And that's what ends that episode. While we're here at the end of an episode, might as well talk about the intros and outros. So each intro is kind of semi-related to the main theme of the episode, I guess. But mostly it's just, it looks cool. So like maybe there'll be a blood splash on it, or it'll be, it'll age through time. It'll be irradiated, that kind of thing. A bunch of cool different title cards. But the outros are actually hints as to what is coming next. So, like, it'll have, say, a radio station, and in the next episode, they'll go to a radio station. That kind of thing. So, each outro sequence has some semi-hints as to what is coming next. / it kind of also relates to the last thing you saw, but not fully. Most of the time it's related to like what's coming next, or at least near the end. That's definitely what it was doing. But yeah, it is that is episode 2, The Target. Episode 3, The Head. Lucy had taken the head, started journeying with it, though she, as a bit of an insurance policy, in case the head ended up out of her possession, she takes a tracker from her Pip-Boy and just shoves it up the nose. And she's like, okay, that'll do. Now I'll be able to track the head if it ends up out of my possession. Well, it does, as she ends up getting attacked by something called a gulper, and it ends up taking the head. And at this point, the ghoul catches up. The ghoul, who in the previous episode had stabbed the doctor's dog, actually ended up healing the doctor's dog and taking the dog with him, as the dog would lead to the head. He uses the dog to track, while Maximus, he has a bit of an issue because the ghoul in the previous episode had disabled his suit, so he has to get that part fixed. He's able to get it fixed pretty quick by selling a couple of his teeth, and then he fights off some brigands, and the Brotherhood send him a replacement squire, which is one of the guys who was bullying him before. He contemplates potentially killing the squire immediately, but instead decides to let him tag along. They end up, after Lucy and the ghoul get attacked by the gulper and aren't able to, do anything about it, she accidentally destroys something, like using the ghoul's satchel, and it destroys his capsules of ghoul away? Question mark? It's not exactly named, I don't believe, ever in the show. It's just some kind of drug that prevents ghouls from becoming feral. This is actually a very new original thing to the series as far as can be told. A very interesting concept, for sure. As there's also a drug that we find out later that makes people ghouls. And ghouls are a lot more immortal in this series, surprisingly. As, like, in the games, a lot of the ghouls are indeed, like, immortal and whatnot. But it's not really a matter of, like, oh, you shoot them, they'll heal it, kind of thing. But in this, it kind of is. Unless you, I guess, shoot them in the head or something, or just really rattle them full of bullets, they can heal. Which is a bit odd, but yes. Anywho. So, after they get attacked, the ghoul, because his drugs have been destroyed and he does not want to become a feral ghoul, drags Lucy along with him in order to go accomplish the goals of getting more drugs. Meanwhile, Titus and his new squire, or quote-unquote Titus and his new squire, are following the ghoul's radiation signal in order to try and get the head back. Well, they end up following the trail straight into the Gulper's pool. And so they must fight off the Gulper. And they're able to actually kill it. Somehow. It's not fully explained how it actually dies. It just ends up, like, choking as it's not able to eat the squire. And then, like, it gets pulled kind of inside out as it vomits. Very confused about that. But anywho, they end up with the head. They celebrate success. Meanwhile, in the flashbacks, Cooper Howard is trying to act and do a movie, but he's kind of not happy with the material, but he's kind of forced to do it because he feels like his character wouldn't just straight up kill a guy, but this new story is kind of telling him that he has to. But he also becomes a spokesman for Vault Tech by putting on a jumpsuit and doing a photo shoot, and that's where the Vault Boy thumbs up ends up coming from, supposedly. But then we go on to the next episode, The Ghouls, where the ghoul takes Lucy to a super duper mart to sell her off. Like, they have conversations here and there and lessons about the wasteland, etc. She has to drink irradiated water because he refuses to give her water, so on and so forth. But they end up at a super duper mart. He plans on selling her for parts to get drugs, 60 vials. Where they have a bit of a scuffle where she bites off his finger and he cuts off hers. She ends up getting a new finger, and then he ends up later on, I think in the next episode maybe, putting on her finger. It's interesting. Maximus ends up revealing himself to his new squire, because they bonded over the killing of that thing and getting the head. The squire does not take it well. Maximus tries to kill him, ends up stepping on his foot, but the squire is able to disable his suit of armor by taking out the power core. Lucy ends up fighting off the robot and ends up indirectly killing the two people there by releasing not only the normal ghouls, but as well as the feral ghouls. And Lucy's kind of forced to end up killing the feral ghoul that she felt the worst about. Then she goes out and gives the ghoul his medicine, because he immediately falls down and is, I guess, kind of incapacitated. So she gives him the medicine and then she leaves. And then she meets up with Maximus, and she's very skeptical about helping him because, well, she's been burned a few too many times. Fair enough. Well, she does end up helping him, though he does lie to her and say that he is Knight Titus. But she helps him out. he gives her rat away because she's like about to pass out from radiation poisoning, and they decide to team up, get the head, go to the Brotherhood, give them that, because what she sees in the Brotherhood is like, you know, a faction of justice and whatnot, though they learn through conversations that that's not really the case. And in the background, again, I tend to forget about it, but Lucy's brother is starting to kind of uncover the secrets of what's happening in Vault 33. He, I believe by this point, has taken the gatekeeper guy, Chad, taken him to Vault 32 to show him that, because during the raid, he went into Vault 32 and he noticed that there was nothing there. There was stuff there, but it looked like it had been abandoned for a long time. So he went back and was kind of protected during the raid. And when he went back with Chad, I think his name is, they uncover the fact that Vault 32's been empty for about 2 years. Like, everyone has been dead. They had fought each other to death, and a lot of them died trying to get into Vault 31. So then there's a big question of, like, what was going on. And it is also revealed that the person who opened the outer vault to let the raiders in, or at least the pit boy that did it, was his and Lucy's mom. Or at least her pit boy did it. So then there's this question of, like, what happened? Why is this happening? And as he continues to dig, he ends up finding out that every overseer that's been appointed has come from Vault 31. Even their dad, who was the overseer, is also from Vault 31. So while they hold these elections, they have a saying that goes throughout the vault: in times of trouble, vote 31. Or something like that. Basically, it's whenever there's an issue, vote 31. But it seems that an issue always arises around the time a vote needs to come up. So, for example, when his dad was elected overseer, there was a weevil infestation that damaged many of the crops. So, since it was a time of strife and trouble, they voted Vault 31, which was the dad. And in this case, the raiders had just happened, and they just lost their overseer, so they vote Betty, who is also from Vault 31. And she had also in the past been an overseer. So, yes, it's a thing. That's what's been kind of going on in the background there, and that her being voted overseer actually ends up in the next episode, which is the past. Maximus's squire does end up taking the head and leaving. So there's that. And Betty, as overseer of Vault 33, orders the repopulation of Vault 32, and they, cleaned it up. So all the damage and whatnot that was seen in Vault 32 was cleaned up and swept away. And the terminal for the overseer was destroyed. Anyway, that, I believe, ends episode 5, The Past. Yeah, so Lucy and Maximus journey together for a bit in this episode. And they do end up coming across Shady Sands, which is actually a location from the games. Though in this instance, it is a bit different. So Shady Sands is actually the first town you come across in the original Fallout. And it's just a small little settlement that has just a few people in it. But it is kind of the establishment location of the NCR. And supposedly it actually grows to be an actual proper city. but then it ends up getting nuked. And supposedly Maximus is actually from Shady Sands. And that's why he joined the Brotherhood, is he's trying to seek revenge on the person who destroyed his home and everything he loved when he was like a baby. And he was taken up by the Brotherhood of Steel and raised in order to do that. But yeah, then they'd come across two people who were cannibals and were planning on attacking them. And he ends up getting shot and is bleeding. So they go to a medical outpost, which ends up being a vault, specifically Vault 4. And yeah, that's where that episode ends, is they're in Vault 4. Then episode 6 begins with an advertisement for Vault 4 done by Cooper back in the past, when he was doing the marketing for Vault Tech. And he gives a tour, and it's said that, oh, this specific vault is going to be run by scientists and whatnot. And that's kind of the idea. So reserve your spot in a vault today, kind of thing. And, you know, they cut, and there's a lot of discussion with some guy named Brad or something like that. No, Bud. A guy named Bud. And he's kind of... He feels uncomfortable with his wife's work, as she seems to be talking more and more about, like, how the vaults will be controlled and whatnot. And he's very upset specifically about the fact that they're not allowed to take their dog. So he ends up going to a meeting that he thinks is like a communist meeting, just to check it out because his friend asked him to. And so he goes to the meeting and discovers that... Well, actually, I don't think he goes to the meeting in this episode. Not yet. I think that's the next episode. A lot of the elements do kind of blend together. I did watch them kind of back to back. So, yeah, a lot of the information kind of blends together. Anywho, let's just kind of rapid fire through the rest. So Maximus and Lucy hang out in Vault 4. There seems to be some weird stuff going on, as Lucy's touting the praises of the vault, but Maximus is a bit skeptical. But then Maximus is kind of welcomed into the vault more, and he, just as he's about to take their power supply to boot up his power armor and get the fuck out, he's given a room and a welcome basket, and he's able to take a hot shower, and he's just like, oh, yes. But Lucy, on the other hand, she goes and sees more of the kind of cult aspect of what's going on, as Vault 4 takes in people from the outside and kind of helps them. But there's also a lot of things that seem to be like experiments have been going on. As it is, there's a whole test subjects room, and there's a whole question of what's going on there. And she's invited to a thing that the surface people do, which is literally like a cult ritual, specifically to the bad guy that took her dad, whose name is Moldover, because all the people from the surface come from Shady Sands and the NCR, and I don't get the culty thing, because in the games there doesn't seem to be that much of a culty aspect with the NCR, but I mean, I wouldn't doubt that it could develop into that, especially when the whole society gets nuked. But yeah. So she gets panicky about that and decides to do a little bit of digging. But Maximus, so now their positions have flipped. So Maximus is like, yeah, this is great. But Lucy's like, eh. So she goes down and discovers in Area 12 what's going on there. And there's a bunch of pregnant women on ice in cryo chambers. And she sees a video where one of them is in this birthing tank thing and gives birth. And I believe it's they're giving birth to the Gulpers. And that's where the Gulpers came from, was this vault. But I think that's all we get in in this episode. Yeah. Then in the next episode, the radio. Oh, episode 6 is called The Trap. Episode 7 is the radio. So Lucy ends up getting caught on level 12, and she like fights her way through and whatnot, and she's expecting to be executed, and they're expecting her to die as well, but the execution ceremony is more, they sentence her to death on the surface, so they're letting her go, but they're also going to give her 2 weeks of, food and whatnot so that she can survive. But Maximus, misunderstanding the situation, goes to save her, takes the Volt's power supply to power up his armor, and starts going to town, but he doesn't kill anyone, though he does hurt someone, and so they both end up being banished. And it was at the same time that she was trying to vouch for him to let him stay, because he was really enjoying the Vault life. So when they leave, she convinces him to return the power supply so that they can, survive. He agrees eventually, and she then talks about him coming with her to live with her in the Vault, because she was supposed to be married, but that didn't work out well, so she has trouble with strangers and whatnot. He comes clean, tells her that he comes clean and tells her that he is not Titus, he is Maximus. He let the man who was wearing the suit die, and then he took the armor. She was like, well, I threw a cup of acid in a man's face, the wasteland's fucked. So, do you want to come live with me in the Vault? And he says yes. So they have this bit of, romance going on. It's not all that deep, and it's very fucking awkward. Because, it's a lot of mentions of, he absolutely does not understand, sex at all. And while she knows it mostly from book learning and having sex, once, they're just really fucking awkward. But it's kind of cute, I guess. But we actually do follow Thaddeus a bit as he's going through trying to find his way back to the Brotherhood of Steel. He comes across a doctor, quote unquote doctor, who was about to end his life, but decided not to in order to help him. Thaddeus being the squire, and he's given an injection, like a inhaler thing, that ends up healing him. But it turns out that it healed him, but it made him a ghoul. So now he is kind of immortal. He is immune to radiation and whatnot, but to slow down the ghoulification process, he'll have to start taking those drugs. But yes, he's waiting at a radio station when Lucy and Maximus meet up with him. He completely misses all of his shots, and the Brotherhood arrive, and that's where he finds out that he's been ghoulified. So he cannot stay there, because if the Brotherhood finds out, he is dead. So Maximus lets him run off, and Maximus also grabs one of the heads that's kind of around the radio station, bashes it, so it's unrecognizable, and lets Lucy off with the head. And Maximus is then taken back to the Brotherhood of Steel, but I think that's actually the next episode. But yeah. So we also get a big twist. I think it is actually a twist that's uncovered at the end of the last episode. It's that Moldover, who's the main bad guy, is actually 200 years old. She's from the pre-war time, and she is the one that was running the meeting about the potential communist meeting. And we actually see the meeting and whatnot, and she sows distrust about about Cooper's wife, and convinces him to maybe bug her pit boy to listen in on conversations. And he does so, but he has trouble actually getting the information that he needs. And Lucy's brother is continuing his thing as residents of Vault 33 are reassigned to Vault 32, he decides to sneak off and access Vault 31. He goes to the Overseer's terminal and, has a conversation with the Overseer of Vault 31, pretending to be Betty and saying that the plan is not going so well. Let me into Vault 31. And he's granted access. He goes in and he hears something, and then the episode kind of cuts after that. And now the final episode, The Beginning. Maximus is taken back to the Brotherhood of Steel, where it is deemed that he lied. Well, one, they're upset. They're like, what happened to your knight? Why did you take his armor? Etc. And instead of being killed, his friend actually convinces them to keep him alive because he is almost about to be shot, keeps saying that he knows where it is and where to get it and whatnot. So he's spared, and he's told by the leader of the Brotherhood of Steel that the plan is, help me build a family, etc. for you and whatnot. Basically saying, you got the right idea of just taking power. And it's assumed that he is the one that both did that and killed Knight Thaddeus. Not Thaddeus. Killed his knight. But his friend actually confesses, saying that they're the ones that sabotaged their boot. Also stated that the reason that they did it was because they were scared of going into the wilds. Now, I don't know if they said it to protect Maximus or what, but I think that they might have actually done that. I'm not entirely sure, because it's heavily implied that Maximus is the one that did it and was just covering up for it, though he did show kind of genuine worry when the razor blade was found, so it's kind of still up in the air-ish as to whether or not he's the one that did it. But yeah, and then he did just kind of let his knight die, but he didn't directly kill the knight. So, yeah. Anywho, so they are to go to war. His friend is being punished for sabotaging themselves, and he's being punished for, letting his knight die. So they must go off to war and whatnot. Though Maximus does tell his friend, hey, there's kind of a way out. We could go to this vault. That's kind of my plan. I'm trying to meet up with Lucy so that we can go to the vault. And his friend's like, there's no getting out. No. Meanwhile, Lucy goes and meets up with Moldover, gives her the head, and all is now revealed. Everything's laid out. So basically what ended up happening was Vault-Tec. So Cooper goes inside Vault-Tec to eavesdrop on his wife because he's having range issues with the responder that he received, or the receiver that he received. So he has to get inside the building, uses his star power and whatnot and the fact that his wife works there to get in, and because he's under the excuse of meeting with his wife, but his wife is in a meeting herself. So he sits there and is listening to the conversation, and we see all these representatives of these different corporations, including Vault-Tec, Robco, and others. Robco being represented by Mr. House. So there is the discussion of what they're to do, because Vault-Tec has been seeing poor sales in the pre-sale of their vaults, so is trying to encourage other things. Specifically, they want the businesses to claim ownership of certain vaults and let them do whatever they want with them, whatever testing, whatnot that they want to do, to see who it comes out on top when it comes to their personal experiments of the vaults. And they sell this, but they're like, yeah, cool theoreticals would be fun, but how can you ensure that they'll actually be used? And Cooper's wife suggests that they drop the bombs themselves. They force the hand and make it because currently there's peace talks. That's what's been hindering their ability to sell vaults. So the discussion of just do it ourselves comes up, and yeah, It is also then revealed that Lucy's dad and the people of Vault 31 are actually all from the past, from 200 years ago. They are the upper management, or the management and upper management of Vault Tech, frozen and made to ensure the, as an insurance plan, basically to ensure that they are the people in charge. And so they set up the Vaults 31, 32, and 33 as kind of the management and the breeding population of the management. Weird, but that's what they say it is. And that's why all the overseers come from Vault 31. They're thought out, put in, and sent off. And it turns out, as well, that Lucy's mom had discovered that people were active on the surface, and so ventured out of the vault in order to see. And she took the kids with her, and they actually settled in Shady Sands and whatnot, but it wasn't to her dad's liking. So he came, got the kids, and then nuked Shady Sands. And so the Brotherhood come in and start their attack. The ghoul also fights in this battle for a bit. He just kind of appears. At some point, he got the dog and used the dog to, I guess, track again. But the dog's not part of the fight. The dog's just kind of MIA at that moment. Maximus comes in the middle of the fight and, just frees her dad and goes to leave. But Lucy's like, no, wait, hold on. He's the one that did it. Now, she takes a long time to tell him that her dad's the one that destroyed Shady Sands, to the point where her dad's able to get into the power armor, and then he knocks Maximus out, fucks off. The ghoul comes in after having damaged him, because in the past, Hank, or Lucy's dad, had met Cooper, or the ghoul, and asked for an autograph. And since then, well, since the bombs dropped at least, the ghoul has been hunting down someone from Vault Tech in order to try and get the information, like, of where his family is. And that's what he's trying to do now. But since he left, he plans on continuing to hunt him down to get even higher up on the chain of information. So, yes, so Lucy kills her mom, who has become a feral ghoul, and is tied to a chair at a dinner table by Moldover, because it is implied that Moldover and her mom had a romantic relationship, I believe. It's implied, but not outwardly stated. Like, she does say, like, hey, we did it. We achieved our dream, kind of thing. And, yeah, it's implied, but not stated. But, yeah, Moldover's entire goal... Oh, and Moldover ends up dying. Moldover's goal is to... She invented cold fusion, essentially. And she was close to doing it in the past, but didn't succeed because her company was bought out by Robco, I think. No, it was either Robco or Vault Tech bought out all of her companies that she had worked for. So she was kind of stuck. And she then tries to... Well, she then somehow survives 200 years and comes... and was able to join the NCR, and she's now like the leader of the NCR, because that's what the group she's with did. Though she used raiders to get to the dad, I believe. I don't think that was the NCR people. But anyway, so all that happens. Lucy goes off with the ghoul to follow her dad. her dad ends up in New Vegas, and Maximus accidentally is given credit for killing the NCR's leader and is promoted to knight. So that is the story. Some other things that happened. Lucy's brother discovers the frozen people, the leaders of Vault 31, and is kind of forced to freeze himself because the brain in a jar on the ground that turns out to be Bud is like, yeah, no, because you know the secret, I have to lock you up, and I won't let you out until we've reclaimed the surface. So you might want to freeze yourself, because there's no food in this vault. But yeah, that's overall the end of Season 1 of Fallout, the TV series. I liked it. It was very good. The special effects, really good. Very gory. They are, she is carrying around a severed, slowly decaying head. Well, actually, many people are carrying around a severed, slowly decaying head for most of the series. And you do see, fingers get cut off, people's heads just kind of exploding. It's a bit gruesome. But the effects overall are quite good. Though I did experience some issue. One, I noticed something very odd, in one of the scenes with the ghoul, you can kind of see the outline of his actual nose in a slight shimmer that's happening with the background. I found that kind of funny. But also there was a weird artifacting. Now I can't tell if this is just an issue that happened in the post-processing of the scenes, or if it's something to do with the streaming. It might be some streaming artifacts. I don't know. Could also be my TV, but I doubt it. I think the most likely thing is it might be just artifacts from the fact that it's a streaming series. But yes, it was pretty good, and it brings up a lot of questions. There was a big question of whether or not Fallout New Vegas was canon anymore because of this. I don't know why, because you see New Vegas at the end, and I think it's because of the fact that New Vegas looks like it's just a dot in the middle of nothing, where I think in the game it's actually surrounded by city. But of course it has been almost 100 or so years, maybe. It's been a long time since the events of New Vegas happened. But yeah, it's a lot. I believe the time frame from Fallout 1 to this TV series is about a period of 100 years or so. So a lot of stuff happened. That's where Shady Sands goes from just a very small community, a trading outpost kind of community, to a full-on fucking city is possible. Bit weird, but possible. So it's claiming that they actually had working fucking trolleys and shit. So yeah, very curious. A lot of things were, of course, left up in the air, what's happening with Vault 33 and 32. Lucy's dad's now on the run, though we do, of course, know what happened to her mom. We know, her brother's kind of on standby now. But, yeah, overall, a pretty interesting series. And we'll see what happens with Season 2. Season 2 has already been confirmed, and it is very likely we will get Season 2 before we even get an announcement of fucking Fallout 5. It's very sad, but very true. Because according to Bethesda, they don't plan on touching Fallout 5 until they've done Elder Scrolls 6. And they, I think, are just now actually fully in development of Elder Scrolls 6. So, yeah, it's going to be a while yet. But oh well. C'est la vie. With that said, I think we are going to go ahead and call it there. Do I recommend this series? Absolutely. If you can stomach the gore, you can stomach this series. It is a pretty good series, and it, again, does its job. It'll probably get you interested in the games. the games are quite good and very fun. But yes, with that said, thank you guys so much for listening. If you guys liked this, feel free to give it a like, comment, subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, or, rate, review, etc. on any podcast catcher of your choice. I've been trying to get it to automatically upload on YouTube, but it doesn't want to. I'm going to do some more fiddling and see what I can do. But with that said, once again, thank you guys so much for listening. I will talk to you guys next week. I don't know what we're doing next week. It'll be a surprise to me too. But until then, goodbye.